All right. So, welcome to another episode of Ascension with A Course in Miracles. And as always, it is just so thrilling to have this conversation with those who are interested in understanding how to make Course in Miracles practical in our lives, not only for our own selves, because that's what the course is. It's a course really it's an individual course. Each person has to do the course on their own. When we come together as a group, yes, we're helping, supporting one another, sharing stories. All of that is absolutely wonderful. But the work of the course is very individual. Nobody can do it for you because you have to go inside and check in within yourself to take 100% responsibility for your life experience. So today, on June the 14th, we're going to talk about, I was inspired while I was in the shower preparing. I kept hearing this guidance saying, today you really need to talk about the current events in a really clear way so that people can see that the world that we see outside of us is a projection of what is within us. This is one of the most difficult things to fully understand because it's very difficult to understand the ego. Most people think they know their ego, but they really have no idea that the ego is an individualized idea of who we are. But that idea of who we are is completely referenced by our upbringing, what others think of us, what the government says, rules, laws, regulations, all written by other egos. So the who we think we are is who we must transcend in order to actually be who we are as God created us. Separating the two is what this journey is all about. As a matter of fact, we're in the middle of a great awakening. What this means is that inside of us, our soul is waking up. It is tired of incarnating and falling asleep for those who are ready to awaken. Those who are not ready to awaken, the soul wants to go to sleep. The soul wants to have a human experience. It wants to forget who it is. So it takes on the persona. I am the mother, the grandmother, the father, the preacher. I'm the doctor. I'm the this, the that. And then it creates an identity based on its own life experiences, not on the soul's eternalness. Because see, our soul is eternal, meaning it has no fear of death because it doesn't die. Our soul is connected to everything. So it's one with all that is. So it never feels alone. It never needs to get anybody. It never needs to hold on to anybody. Our soul is loving because it's connected to everything. It loves all that is. Our soul is creative because it is an aspect of God extending itself to create. So all of the absolutely magnificent qualities of who we are as a soul are not expressed by the ego. As a matter of fact, the ego suppresses that. The ego makes certain that we don't hear the part of us who feels connected to all that is, because then it can't judge. The ego is what blocks our soul's ability to unconditionally love, and it doesn't judge anything. It doesn't accuse anything. It is neutral about anything, everything, because it is here to co-create. The ego, on the other hand, gets offended, gets upset, gets indignant, gets jealous, because it is not one with all that is, because it's an idea of me separate from all that is. This is a crucial distinction. I'm going to say it again and again and again. The ego, when we go on a spiritual journey, our soul is guiding us towards experiences in alignment, in co-creation with God. We hear it as a voice. You can call it the Holy Spirit. You can call it intuition. You can call it nudge. You can call it whatever you want, because all labels are made up by humans. God, knowing itself as all that is, doesn't label anything because it doesn't separate anything. It doesn't have to say, oh, that's the soul that's going to be Laina, and that's the soul that's going to be Peter, and that's the soul that's going to be, Trump. It doesn't do that. It's just aspects of itself expressing itself in as many ways as it wants to, but it doesn't separate. Therefore, it does not label and judge. The ego, on the other hand, the minute you're born, you come out of your mother's womb, you are a separate being. This is your name. This is your ethnicity. This is what you're going to learn as your religion. And we get saddled as a baby. We were given a full suitcase filled with who we're going to be. It's all predetermined by our parents. Well, our soul is also predetermined. Our soul script is written because our soul decides to be born to that family, to have those experiences, because that is the best place to remember who it is. So right now, here we are, like I said, June 14th, 2023. We are in the middle of what is known as the Great Awakening, the apocalypse, the resurrection of humanity, the separation of the wheat and the chaff, ascension. You can call it whatever you want to call it. It doesn't matter. What is happening is as within, so without. As within, we're sorting what is true, what is false, what is eternal, what is temporary. Meaning we're sorting what is of God's, what is of the ego. The outer world is giving us a perfect mirror of what is taking place within so many of us. Now, Jesus walked this planet 2,000 years ago, Buddha 2,500 years ago, other sages, other magnificent beings also have walked this planet, but they were 1, 2, maybe 3 at the time, bringing light to the planet, not sufficient to create the apocalypse that we're in now. So this apocalypse is nothing more than more and more lights coming together. So where there might have been 1, 2, 3, 4, which their light was quite strong, their light was equivalent to 1 million beings' light today. But today we have millions of beings that are waking up, meaning they're seeing through what is loving and what is not, what is true, what is fake. When you combine millions, I'm going to venture to say at least 500 million beings are actively, this is the key word, actively transcending their ego, looking at the part of them that is conditioned, because we have to transcend the ego. Now, a trick which makes it very difficult to transcend the ego is the ego gets spiritualized. The ego can talk the talk. The ego can talk love and light all day long out there in the groups that it gathers with on Sundays or Wednesdays or whatever days it connects with them. But the rest of the week, the ego is watching television, judging. The ego is looking at Facebook, judging. The ego is listening to something about some person, hating. Reading something about somebody else in a magazine, jealous. So we can talk the spiritual talk all day long. We can even be part of groups, be part of communities like my community that's been together for a very, very long time. And there are people there who subjects are off limits. Well, we're not going to talk about politics, or we're not going to talk about this. We're not going to talk about that, because they are still in a state of separation. These two things are not observed. They're not aware that for them to come into oneness, they must come inside and unify with one voice, the voice for God. But because they're separate inside, they can't handle things that they're not prepared to handle. So there's a lot of creating boundaries and creating circles and casting people out, even in spiritual circles. It clearly has happened in religious circles. That's how the religious wars are all about, we have the right answer about God and you don't, meaning ego has the right answers about God. But if the ego has the right answer about God, it's never going to be the answer. It's going to be what it perceives as the answer. And it's always going to be selfishly oriented. What do I get out of this? This is why you can see organizations like the Catholic Church, massive organization. I remember, now this may not be true today, but at least a couple of decades ago, they were considered the largest landowner in the world because they had churches, in just about every corner. So when you accumulate that level of real estate, most of those communities were in towns that were nothing 100 years ago, 200 years ago, but today are the center of a metropolis, like in the middle of New York City. So the land is worth a lot of money. Well, guess what they think God is all about? Protecting their wealth. If the Catholic Church really believed in the truth of God, it would not own anything. As a matter of fact, it would keep its doors open. It closes its doors because it's protecting its paintings, it's protecting its art, it's protecting all of the things that it thinks gives them value versus sharing it with humanity. A lot of selfishness, a lot of greed in the Catholic Church. Now, do they do a lot of good? Absolutely. There are lots of people in the Catholic Church. Many have come through there. We've had beings like St. Francis of Assisi, and I can't think of all the Teresa of Avila. I can't think of all the names, but many, including today, who speak from a place of connection to the divine. I follow a couple of those people who are Catholics, and they've risen to positions of power within the Catholic Church, and they're shining their light because they have discovered that what needs to awaken is the soul within, and that's our direct connection to God. And once you connect directly to God, you know the truth that passes all understanding. And that truth, you can't really get anybody to understand it because you've got to do the work yourself. The only way to understand the truth that passes all understanding is to experience it. So, for example, when I say that we're eternal, that to the spiritualized ego, oh yeah, I'm eternal. Oh yes, I'm have past lives, I'll have future lives. But have you felt your eternity? Have you felt it? Have you experienced yourself in timelessness? Have you transcended the limitations of the egoic mind to this lifetime? If you cannot say, yes, I have felt that, then you're talking the talk. To walk the walk, to walk the talk, then you have to have felt your eternalness, meaning there is no more fear around death. There is nothing that you want to hold on to because you know everything is transient in the world of the ego. This is where letting go of attachments comes in. To let go of attachments to the worldly things, you have to have felt that you are otherworldly. You're just a visitor on this planet, which happens to be a playground for souls to come in and embody roles and play pretend for a little while. You can think of this as a grand masquerade ball, and we all come in and dress up and play a role. Now, for a long time, that was perfectly okay to just come in, play the role, forget who you are as a soul, get caught up in your humanness, and be at any level of the journey. You could be at the high frequency, you could be at the low frequency, all good. You die, boom, you're back with source, you remember your all that is, and then you say, okay, when can I go back in and play? I love going to the masquerade ball. That has been well and good for many souls, but many, as I said, upwards of 500 million souls, maybe even a billion by now, are saying we're done. We're done playing in the realm of suffering. The low frequency of suffering has to have judgment, right and wrong, good and bad, haves and have-nots. It has to have victims and villains. It has to have all of the components of a gory movie. And it includes jealousy. It includes judging. It includes feeling lack. It includes making the body real and drama and painful this, painful that. Because that's what the costume in that masquerade ball requires. Why would you want to go to a masquerade ball and pretend that you are, um, uh, you know, a third dimensional being and not have the drama? Why would you want to do that? You wouldn't even come here. There are lots of other planets. See, when you begin to feel your eternal self, you realize not only are you not alone because you're connected to God, but the universe of universes is populated with the essence of God expressing itself in lots of different ways. Then you can get into the understanding that there are, other beings on other planets and other galaxies. You understand about the Orions and the Pleiadians and the Sirians. You begin to really understand that this is not the only game in town. This is not the only masquerade show. There are beings that are having experiences expressing itself as totally, completely different looking than our human bodies, with light bodies, because the higher frequency you are, the higher dimensionally that you are at, your body is not physical. The physical body is designed for the 3D masquerade ball because it stores everything that is unprocessed as a signal mechanism. So you have pain, it's letting you know this is a signal that you have stored pain, physical pain, emotional pain, mental pain. A mind that believes that I am not good enough is going to store pain somewhere. It stores it in the body. So the body goes ding, 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 I'm hurting, to give us a signal that we're holding on to something that makes us not only condensed, but it makes us dense. It keeps us in this masquerade ball. If you want to go to another masquerade ball, if you want to ascend and no longer have to deal with pain, death of the body, haves and have nots, hunger, rape, just greed, if you don't want to deal with that, then you must decide. This is why the journey to awaken is 100% responsibility to take control of the fact that you are the creator of your reality. The soul is creating a reality as you, but you have to remember that you're the soul if you want to create a different reality. You cannot create a reality of love, joy, and peace for all. I mean, you can talk about it all day long. I know lots of people that I've worked with for, 17, 18 years that talk about all the wonderful things that they want to experience, but still are stuck in the minutia of the judgments and the density of egoic fear and jealousy and well, just judgment, because that is what this 3D planet is for. Saying that you want to ascend is all well and good. Doing the work to ascend is quite important. But committing to only ascension is a totally different thing. See, to do the work to ascend, it's always from the egoic perspective. The ego is the one that wants to ascend. To absolutely be diligent and be determined and have no other path but ascension is to acknowledge you are the soul, is to embody what that is. This is how you walk the talk. You be the light, you be the love, you be the one who is unattached, you be the one who does not operate in lack, who does not have attachments. You be the one who is committed to the co-creation of something at a higher frequency, meaning you've got to be that. You have to be the change you want to see in the world. And those beings that are being the change, they are connecting. They are vibrationally gathering with those who are operating at that frequency, and they are literally doing something to co-create a whole new world. And there is no needing to judge, no needing to blame. They're not wasting their time with the things of the 3D realm. They're just moving forward. And yes, when they share their examples or their stories, it could sound judgmental because there is a comparison going on of what is loving and what is not, what is truth, what is not, what is light, what is darkness. And we need to have that contrast so you know where you're going. How would you know where you're going if you didn't have options to go to. Otherwise, we'd all always be at the same place. And that's it. But if you're going somewhere, then you know that it is different than this place. Otherwise, if you get to the hotel, how would you know you're at a hotel and not your house unless it's other than? Which is part of the 3D world, is to experience otherness, but not to imbue it just with the ego. This planet was given to us. As a matter of fact, humanity is descendants of beings that wanted to have a wonderful experience on this beautiful planet called planet Earth. But through the fall of man, called that way in religion, in other terms, in other ways, through the fall of man, we have descended into the lower realms of consciousness, meaning because it's a costume ball and it's temporary, you can take the costume off. Many have descended into victimization, being villains, being hateful, being mean, being, all of the things that can be played with because it's a temporary game. As a child, I used to play pretend all the time. I used to play with my sisters. We would play doctors and patients. And sometimes I was a patient and I would lay down and they would poke and prod. And sometimes some of my sisters would be a little mean. Maybe I was one of the mean ones too. And, we'd take the little tweezers and we pinch the skin. All pretend, but nobody got hurt. Oftentimes we take knives pretending to cut each other open to take out something that we were hurt or broken, and we'd be pretend crying, oh, that hurts, doctor, please fix it. All pretend. We knew it was temporary. When mom called us to dinner, that game was done and over with. The suffering was pretend. That is what the 3D world is all about. We're pretending. But because we have taken it so seriously, we have forgotten to laugh at the game that we're playing. We now are being called into awakening, because those that are done with that game, that don't want to continue to pretend to be hurting when we know I don't have to be hurting, are done with that, and we are ready for an ascended planet. So the bifurcation that is happening, the separation that is happening in the world, is because internally we are separating our ego from our soul. We're witnessing. We, as the aware presence, are aware that we have a choice, because this is the planet of otherness, this and this other thing. Until we are clear that we're always choosing between two, and the two are simple: love, fear, God, ego, abundance, lack, well-being, sickness, total complete detachment. So you are there's nothing that you have to hold on to. Possessiveness, attachments to things. We find that we feel secure because it's mine. Well, to move to the realm of total and complete freedom, we must cut the cords to everything, not only from our past incarnations that still have access to our psyche and are still held within the physical body, and we're holding them as traumas, as pains, as limitations. We must look at that. The reason it's so difficult for people to wake up is because you've got to say no to who you think you are. You've got to say, no, I'm not tolerating my judgments anymore. I am not tolerating my fears anymore. I am not tolerating my insanity anymore. I'm not going to tolerate my feelings of lack. Now, this is not a spiritual bypass. Oh, there's lack there. You know what? I'm not tolerating. I'm not going to look at it. No, you look at it. You look at it and you say, you have no power over me. And you discover, well, where did I learn this from? Where did this come from? Oh, this is what I learned from my grandmother, so she must have learned it from somebody else. This is past lives, because we are one. So you were your grandmother. Now, of course, that is entering into the realm of oneness. So your mind has to be prepared to understand that there is nobody other than you. So as you begin to look at where these things come from, once you've identified where they came from, you don't need to keep going back when it keeps getting activated. You just simply say, I'm not tolerating this thought in my mind that keeps saying that I'm not good enough, that I'm better than, that I'm less than because so and so didn't call me, that I am less than because so and so fired me. You say, that's not true. What is the truth of my soul? And then you shift and you lift your frequency to abiding in the truth of your soul. And that is what so many on the planet today are doing. Many are taking 100% full responsibility for the power that we have. The power that we have is to create. And when you say, I'm not good enough, you are creating. When you say there's not enough, you are creating. When you say, so and so doesn't love me, you are creating. Every thought is creative. Now, we've heard that, especially in spiritual circles, for eons, because those are the messages that we have been participating in, with whether you're in the unity movement or the in New Age movement or the science of mind movement. There's so many movements. All of them speak to my mind creates my reality. But the difference between saying my mind creates my reality and being vigilant for only the thoughts that come from your soul, so that you can know any thought of limitation, of lack, of disease, of illness, of jealousy, is not your soul. So if you've committed to only acknowledging the truth of who you are, you're going to go through a process of totally and completely rejuvenating your body. Again, as I said earlier, your body is a vehicle. Course in Miracles says the body is an instrument for communication. The body has a function, and it is to communicate. Pain communicates. There's something here that is of low frequency. I need to address it. When you begin to be diligent for only the kingdom of God, meaning you are only going to hold loving thoughts as true. You're still going to have unloving thoughts, but you will, as the witness, as the one aware, you will say, no, I'm not accepting that thought today. That judgment, that lack, that illness, whatever, that is not my truth, but it's happening. So we don't deny it. We don't do spiritual bypass. We don't deny it. We use it as a guidance to what is it that we need to look at, because the body is a communication device. All physical discomfort, all emotional discomfort is a guidance. It's like a signal. It's like on your car. I don't know about you, but in my car, when my gas is getting low, I get a signal. When my tires are getting low, I get a signal. When my oil change is, coming up due, which is right now, as a matter of fact, today I'm taking my car in for an oil change because last week the signal came on. I don't get mad at the signal. I don't get mad at the sore throat that I had last week. I use the signal as guidance. What did I do when my throat was hurting last week? I felt it as I laid down to go to sleep, and I sat up and I immediately said, I am not my body. I am free. What is it that is happening? Where am I withholding my voice? Where am I needing to bring attention to maybe something that I should have said and I forgot to say? Where is something that I'm supposed to teach and I haven't put it on my calendar so that it's not something that I'm going to actively remember? So I sat up and I was very clear. I am not a body. I am not this body. I am free. And it took me about an hour of continuing to state the truth of who I am, not in a flippant way, because I am very well practiced at knowing my truth. So I just sat and I felt every aspect of my body until I could get to, I went through the denser layers. I went through the skin. I went through the organs. I went through the bones. I went into the blood, the liquids, all of that, until I moved out of all of that and came out on the other side to being the pure energy that animates it. And then from that place, I just sat there and said, okay, what is it that I need to know? I am ready to receive whatever guidance I need, because I don't need to have the sore throat as a signal. I'm going to go take my car to get the oil change. If I don't, I'm going to have an oil change signal until my car breaks down. So I don't need to ignore the signals anymore, because the signals are just information about where am I in my density. So what do? I connect with my divinity. I acknowledge that as my truth, because I don't live from the costume is my reality. I am the reality. I and the Father, Mother God as one is my reality. Everything else is a temporary experience, communicating to me that there is a call for love, or I'm experiencing as being the essence of love. So as we look at what's happening in the outer world, we're seeing, if you have the eyes to see, I never really understood what Jesus meant. If you have the eyes to see and ears to hear, I'm like, everybody has eyes and ears. Of course they see and hear. Man, oh man, was I totally, completely just misguided. To have the eyes to see and the ears to hear means that you're seeing past the bullshit, the BS, the belief systems. You're observing those who are operating with the ego, those who are operating in lies. And of course, that includes corruption. And corruption is the mind is corrupted, and it is serving itself. It is serving the egoic self. This is why it was told to us thousands of years ago. Jody, let me see. What was the signal to you? The signal, what? I never got an exact thing. I simply got, just continue to own who you are. And the more I owned who I am, sore throat went away. I went to sleep, woke up, and haven't had it since. But I have had a lot of practice. I don't need to go to get to the root of anything specifically. When you get to a certain place in your consciousness, you know that there are things that you're picking up. It could have been the consciousness of humanity that I was picking up, that humanity is still not speaking their voice. All I need to do is, with conviction, see, I have zero doubt that I am one with God. That is something that there's no doubt in my mind. I know I am an expression of God in physical form, appearing as Laina. Laina has taken back seat. God is in the front seat. You could, that great song. I love that song. Jesus, take the wheel. I handed over the wheel to God a long time ago, years ago. So for me, if it doesn't come up pretty quickly what it is, it's because it's not mine. But we are, as we become beings that are more connected with all of humanity, we are picking up on vibes that, because of the power of my light operates in the high frequency. So when I put my mind to sending healing to somebody, like I did to you last night, Jody, my frequency, what I'm emanating, is very potent. So if I get that humanity needs to be able to use their voice, and I see that as so, and I see that light coming out of me, activating the chakras, the 5 chakras of humanity, I know it is doing its work, because God is using me as a being of light to beam light to those who need the light. So I get that. I am here in service to humanity. I am not here to get anything else from the world. Those days are done. I am here to give to the world. So that's a great question. What was it for me? About earlier in my journey, I would have told you. Now I'm just picking up that in that moment, something was calling me to remind myself to align with source in that moment, so that I could have that instant healing. Now, the world is going through today, specifically today, the last couple of days, what we're witnessing with what's happening with President Trump. Here's what I'm going to say. I am excited that that's happening. And this is why. And it's not going to be what some people might think. I'm excited that this is happening because it is highlighting the double standards. Course in Miracles tells us so clearly that the ego operates in double standards. What's good for me is not going to be good for you if I'm operating in greed and selfishness. So what we're witnessing happening to one president, that's never happened to any other president, during election time, when he is actually attempting to run a campaign for re-election. That is what happens in banana republics. That is what happens in tyrannical places. places with dictatorships, they do that. Whoever's in power makes sure that they find fault with their competitor, especially if it's a pretty good competitor. If it's a low-level competitor that doesn't have many ratings, they don't bother with that. But if it's a high-level competitor, we saw that happen in Brazil not long ago. Americans are so individually focused, which is a very egoic thing. In this way, I just need what keeps me safe, what keeps my family safe, and I just need to do what I need to do to pay my bills. Extremely egoic because it doesn't recognize its connection to the rest of the world. So specifically in the West, we don't really get the truth about what's happening around the world. So we don't see that all the cheap stuff that we can buy at Walmart, it's costing the lives of many around the world. That the batteries, the electric cars that we want to drive, and that there's a push to get those. We don't see that to gather what is necessary to produce those batteries is killing people around the world. We're getting pennies on the dollar so that we can get this brand new electric vehicle. We are not connected to the greater whole. Now, we cannot connect to the greater whole until we begin to do the work of the soul, because the soul is our connection to all that is. And as we connect to all that is, what I asked for in prayer for me is going to be for you as well. This is why when I know that something is not mine, it's a call for love from humanity. As I give it to humanity, guess where it is being emanated from me? So what happens is that loving, healing energy was moving through me. Of course, I woke up energized and vibrant and ready to hit the ground running because I gave to others what I most needed. So maybe my sore throat had nothing to do with my throat specifically, had more to do with, all right, girl, we got to fill up the energy tank. And through that process is how I got my attention. Amazing things. Let's go to the Course in Miracles. We are now we're still in chapter 30, the beginning. We can't rush through this. Freedom of will. Let me read the first line in this section. You do not understand that to oppose the Holy Spirit, to oppose God, is to fight yourself. When we block love, light, peace, creativity, you're fighting against your own benefit. I teach classes, I teach courses, and inevitably in just about every one of my classes, when I say that it is possible for us to live in total complete peace, that we can look at what's happening from an elevated place and realize everybody's playing the role that they're playing, inevitably there's going to be somebody who's fighting against themselves. Well, I can't just, be at peace when I see all this terrible stuff and not go do something about it. Okay. The Course doesn't tell us not to do something about what's happening in the outer world. As a matter of fact, the Course tells us that we are the saviors of our brothers and sisters, meaning we've got to come to the place that we first acknowledge everybody is a soul. Everybody. They're playing roles that they want to play. Even the one who is being abused is playing a role that they want to experience, because through that role, they get to activate one of the most potent frequencies in the 3D world, which is forgiveness. This is why until we forgive them, because they don't know what they're doing when they're unconscious, I didn't know what I was doing when I was unconscious. If we don't activate the forgiveness that comes from the soul, which means unconditional, it doesn't matter what you did, I'm going to totally forgive it because it never affected my soul. Our soul has never been touched. Our soul is pure energy. It's never been touched by anything that happens in the 3D world. So when we practice what the Course states, we stop fighting ourselves. When we learn the true forgiveness that, you don't owe me anything. There's nothing that anybody owes me. There's nothing that I need to get from anybody else for me to be happy. I can be totally happy, be my merry, happy little self, and never see anybody else in the whole wide world. It's not necessary. When you find your connection to God, then from that place, of course, you're going to emanate your light. And for some, it will look like going to do something from a loving place, going in to assist from a loving place, sending money from a loving place, or staying home in prayer, in your cave, wherever you happen to be at, in prayer, knowing that what is moving through you is serving the greater good of all. To be at that level of consciousness, then you get your marching orders. Then you hear what is next for you. But there will be zero judgment because you're not fighting yourself anymore. You are aligned with God. You're aligned with love. You're aligned with truth. What is happening with President Trump right now is showing us the double standards that we operate from. Now, it's not a good or bad thing. It's just, it is in the masquerade, in the costume ball that we're in. Those who have risen to power play the role typically that they have a power that everybody else doesn't have, that they don't have to be prosecuted, that they don't have to be held accountable, and everybody else does. So the two-tier justice system that we see in every country that operates with the elites and then everybody else, that must be seen because that is of the ego. And because it's become so blatantly obvious and it's hurting so many people, and it's hurting those who are innocent, because the system goes after very often people who are innocent to make an example of them so that it keeps everybody else in line. So pay attention, open your ears, listen to all sides, listen to everything, because you're going to pick up information. If you only listen to one group versus the other, then your ears can't hear. If you only watch this TV program instead of the other, then your eyes are not really seeing. You've got to understand the game that is being played. And I can tell you that this is setting off a chain reaction that is going to create a level playing field, meaning this now has opened up Pandora's box, that now all presidents, including past ones and of course future ones, can now we can go after them, which is not a bad thing, not a bad thing. But the way that it is playing out right now, it is a script that is written because there are situations that God creates to activate our expansion. For me, it was clearly when I married Ken, that was meant to be a big, expansive experience for me. And of course, it came with a divorce. It came with all kinds of things that in the world felt very, very painful, emotionally, very, very painful. But they were lessons. There were portals that opened me out of a box. Yes, by the time I married Ken, I created a bigger box. So it was a much prettier box. And I had a lot more space to roam around than the smaller box that I had been in before. So I thought, oh, I've arrived. But then I came to the edge of that box. And the edge of that box was the pain that called me in to discover my spiritualized ego. I was judging him for not being spiritual enough. Well, if I'm judging him, I'm not spiritual enough. So, because all judgment is a clue that you're not being the love and the light. So that expanded me. What's happening in the world, as within, so without, is expanding us. So now we've come to see the box where we wouldn't go after our competitors in a political arena. Now we go after them. Okay, the box got bigger. Now we're going to go after all people until eventually the box gets so big and we stop playing double standards. Everybody's going after each other. And then we go, okay, this is crazy. Then we look for another way. Then we look for the way of God, not the way of the ego getting back at one another, because it's not going to be helpful for one group to then take revenge on another and then take revenge on the other. However, until we see one group take revenge, we don't get to see both sides. So what's happening out there is necessary, because when we see that we are angry at our person who didn't invite us to the party and we're going to take revenge and not invite him to our party, how are you going to see that revenge is in your heart? How are you going to see jealousy? So what's happening outside is a reflection of what must happen inside. So we stop fighting against each other. Let me rephrase that. So you stop fighting against yourself. So paragraph number 4 then states, what cause have you for anger in a world that merely waits your blessing to be free? So why would you be angry at what's happening in the political arena, in the medical arena, in the education arena, in the cultural arena? Why would you be angry? Because the world is merely waiting for our blessing to be free. We get to decide, oh my goodness, this is the game of the 3D world. I am ascending. I am stepping back, stepping back, stepping back, seeing it clearly. I got the eyes to see, the ears to hear. I'm observing what's happening. That's pretty crazy. It's insane. The Course in Miracles says when we listen to the ego, we're insane. The world is insane. It has lost its freaking mind because it's aligned with the mind of the ego. It's lost its mind, meaning its connection to the mind of God. It is totally, completely operating in tit for tat. But for a long time, there was a sacred cow. We don't go after the people in high positions because they all have the same secrets. There aren't two parties, there's one party, and they all know the same secrets. They just show up in different ways so that they can keep humanity divided and keep the costume game going because they want to play the divisive game. So when you can see the game and you don't want to play it anymore, you get clear about what kind of a world do you want. I want a world where government is in service to the people. It is of the people, by the people, for the people. I want that. So this, what we've had is not that. So this is going to have to collapse because there are many like me who are observing this and saying there is another way, the way of transparency, the way of totally, completely tracking everything that happens with all of our tax dollars, the ways of ensuring that if we are generating tax dollars, that they're not going to pet projects, that they're taking care of the American people. Well, you look at the world right now, look at this country, potholes everywhere, decline everywhere, homelessness everywhere, chaos everywhere. And we have paid the highest taxes we ever have in history. And how come this is not taken care of? Because that money is going somewhere else. Do we know where it's going? Do we really? We may know it goes to this country or that country, but do we see where it goes? All those things are being exposed because that's what the ego does. You got to do the same thing with you. When you say that you're enlightened, when you say that you're spiritual, where is all that energy going? If you are judging this person, if you're judging that one, if you're blaming this one, if you're worried about this, that, or the other, then your energies are going towards, because you're a creative being, creating more of that. If you don't follow the energy, if you don't follow the money, you can see what is the lie that you're perpetuating by being ignorant of what's happening. Waking up requires an incredible amount of responsibility that we must track everything. We must track every thought that I have, take it to how far it could possibly go because it's creating powerfully there. Any thought of jealousy, it's activating jealousy in the world. Maybe there are people who are jealous of me. Maybe there are situations that are still happening because I sent them energy. Maybe the woman that Ken had his affair with me, even though he accused me of potentially cheating on him, he's the one who ended up having a relationship with somebody else while we were supposed to be in a relationship. So I had thoughts about that woman. I had jealous thoughts. I had vengeful thoughts. I had to clear that up because I didn't want her to be affected because she and I are one. So when you get really clear that your blessing is what frees the world, but you can't free the world until you take full responsibility that the world is a reflection of you. The lies out there are because I believed in lies my whole life. When I believed that I was just Laina, a human being, I was believing lies. So I populated the world with all kinds of other human beings to make it real for me. So you want to free the world, free yourself, then from that place of consciousness, focus on the world to observe what is happening So you know where it is that you're sending the love and the light. You know, the abuse of the children that is going on, absolutely horrific. Most people can't even believe it. There is a movie coming out. This the now I can't even remember the title. I think it's called The Sound of Freedom. If I'm not mistaken, that's the title. If somebody here knows the title, please share it with me. But it is a movie that is going to expose that the reason the corruption happens at the political levels that it does, and nobody gets punished except for those who are outsiders and don't really understand the game, like maybe Trump. So they're going after him because he knows too much. But here's the thing. So much of the darkness that is possible is because everybody, and when I say everybody, I'm going to say just about everybody in political positions of power who have been there as a career. Nobody who is in service enters politics as a career. They enter into service, do their thing, and go back to the world and operate under the laws that they created because they went to do something good. So they go back into the regular world and experience the good that they created. Career politicians, on the other hand, have agendas. And when you get caught up in agendas and you participate in some of the darkness that is happening, inevitably, you're going to be willing to do things that maybe you would not otherwise have done because the ego is very greedy. It wants money and power. And if you can do things in positions that get you money and power, and somebody understands that because this is the way the ego operates, somebody who knows that you're weak enough to go after money and power and they have more money and power than you, guess what they're going to do? You are going to be, they're going to videotape what you did. Why? Because our own ego has memories of the things that we did that are not good, and it's stored in our body. And when we have a pain, we go in and we heal that pain. So ego, as within, so without, that's the same thing. It takes a record of it. It's in a video somewhere. It's in a movie somewhere. It's in a photo somewhere. It's in a recording, audio recording somewhere. Why? Because when there's enough light, we need to hear it. We need to see it. We need to feel it to heal it. So outside, things are coming into light. These are the pain bodies, the very uncomfortable, dark secrets that are coming out. When you feel the pain in your body, when you've got illnesses, things, that those are the secrets that you have been keeping from your conscious awareness, calling, because the body is a communication device. It is communicating what needs to be freed. So when you look at this, what cause have you for anger in a world? Why be angry at all the darkness that is coming up when it is merely waiting the blessing for freedom? It is finally waiting for those who have been ignoring, maybe too spiritual, to look at how can corruption happen? How can, what was the number that I heard? 80,000 kids a year disappear? How can that happen? We track and trace everything. How the government knows where I spend every dime. I mean, they know what I'm doing with my money. How can we not know what's happening with a child? Doesn't that make you wonder? How can 80,000, I believe that's just in the US, go watch that movie. How can we not know what's happening to these children? Well, we're about to find out what's happening to these children, and it's not pretty. But the abuse of a child in the outer world is a projection of the abuse of our own inner child. When we don't honor our inner voice, when the ego gets created and begins to snuff our own inner voice, and we begin to manipulate the outer world, that inner child is stuck inside of us, suffering, waiting for us to let it out. As within, so without. The children who are suffering out there at the hands of the leader, because when we listen to the ego is our leader. It's our tyrant. It's our dictator. The children who are suffering at the hands of the dictators outside, their voice has been a crying. But, it's not my child. It's not happening in my neighborhood. It's not happening in I don't know anybody who's been abducted. So, I can let go of that. That's because we're not connected to one another. When we begin to open up and allow what is surfacing to give us information, instead of saying, oh, that's too dark, I'm not going to look at it. Oh, that's the other party, I'm not going to look at that. when we look at it, because we know we have light to shine on it, and we're here to help free the world, then we can see that everything that happens within happens without. If you lie inside, there's lying outside. If your mind was corrupted inside, it's corrupted outside, because all beings have the same opportunity to wear the same kind of costumes in this costume ball called planet Earth. So sentence number 2 says, if you be prisoner, then God himself could not be free. If you think that you're at the mercy of all of those horrible things, that you're at the mercy of your past, your childhood, then God has no power. So you have to make a decision to not be a victim, to not be a prisoner, and connect with the creator that created all of these opportunities for us to experience, and then say, how do I get out of this mess? How do I stop the madness? How do I pick a different destination? We do that when we go on vacation. We don't like that place, we don't go back. That's what's happening right now in our divine interstellar vacation opportunities. We are done with vacationing in the land of insanity. Oh, goodness. But you cannot leave the land of insanity if you judge it. You can only leave it if you acknowledge it's a game you don't want to play, but you let those who want to play it, let them play it. You leave them alone. Unless they ask for assistance, unless you feel the guidance to send them love, not to change their situation, but to send the frequency that helps them remember that they can change if they want to. Everybody has to be the change that they want to see in the world. Nobody can change for us. And that only comes when we tap into God and we know the truth of our soul. We tap into our eternalness. We tap into our power, into our creativity. Then we go, oh yeah, this is what created me. This source is what created me. I'm going to play from this side. All right. Sentence 3. For what is done to him whom God so loves is done to God himself. When we understand that we are all one, what I do to you, I do to me. That is what is so magical about the process of waking up, is a recognition that we are not alone. Excuse me a second. It's a recognition of the majesty, the grandness of this incredible game. And when you realize that we've been playing the game blindfolded and very primitive toys, then we wake up, take off the blindfold, and then see that there is an array of toys awaiting humanity. But we have to be ready for those toys. I can't give my 2-year-old grandson the toys. I actually attempted this, toys that are at a higher level, because he doesn't get it. And he got a little frustrated with it. And I went, oh, this really needs another year before he can play with this game. And I thought, okay, well, he's so advanced because he's my little grandchild. But it's not so. At his developmental stage, he wasn't ready for that game. So if humanity is not ready to play with the toys that are coming, what are those toys? Free energy. Well, if you're a corrupt leader, a corrupt politician, a corrupt CEO, you don't want anything free. How are you going to make money? We've been taught that our self-worth and our net worth are connected. We can go around giving this free energy that Tesla talked about a long time ago. Why do you think Tesla disappeared? Why do you think that they say he went mad? Well, if you really begin to put 2 and 2 together, you will see that the technology for free, lots of things has always been there. The ability to feed every human being has always been there. The ability to heal every human being has always been there. In the 3D world where we have sicknesses, there are ways of healing. Why hasn't that been exposed? A lot of it was there hundreds of years ago. How can we be advancing and we be getting sicker? How can we have more diseases today than we had 200 years ago? What happened? What changed? Follow the money. And that you begin to see the corruption of the mind that is focused on lack, doesn't know that it is one with all that is. It doesn't know abundance, so it cannot share. It's not going to share free energy, because then, well, how's that going to build my portfolio? then I'm going to go from 3 billion to 1 billion if I start giving away all this free energy. Well, when you know you're one, you don't want to keep it from somebody else because you're keeping it from yourself. Because to deny another, you are denying yourself. To block another is a block to self. We are one. That's why you have to love your neighbor as yourself, because you are one. All right, so the next sentence says, think not he wills to bind you. God doesn't want to bind you. Who has made you co-creator of the universe along with him? We've been made in the image of God. We've been given the power of God. Course in Miracles says we have the exact same power as God, except for one thing. One thing only. God created us. We didn't create God, meaning we were created by the creator of all that is. That's the only difference. But we have the same creative powers. Our mind creates our reality. What you're believing about yourself. Are you believing your human story? Here's a suggestion. Write down who you think you are and let your ego have fun. I'm a daughter, I'm a sister, I'm a doctor, I'm a nurse, I'm retired, I'm a teacher, I'm a this, I only have $3,000 in the bank account, or maybe I don't have anything. Maybe I'm paycheck to paycheck. Maybe I have 300,000, maybe I have 3 million. Write it down. That is who your ego thinks you are. Do you believe that you'll be less than if you lose your $3, your 300,000, your 3 million? If you believe you're going to be less than, then you are operating in a world of lack. There's only this much and it's mine and I got to protect it. Then you're living inside of your egoic identity. On the other side, write down your soul. I'm eternal. I'm not bound by anything. I'm connecting to creativity. These are the things that I love to do. I'm going to share these things. Never thinking, what can I get out of it? Only give it, give it, give it, give it. Because as you give it, you find that there is an entire world that is so interested in connecting with you. Then the collaboration, the co-creation, the reciprocality of money, of energy takes place. And it's absolutely amazing and wonderful. So we are moving in that direction. God created you to create. In the ego world, there's no creation. There's only regurgitation, repetition, same old bullshit over and over and over and over again. And we want a different result, but we keep doing the same thing. Insanity, as we've been told. All right. He would, but keep your will forever and forever limitless. You were created with no limitations, including the ability to play this crazy game. Now, do you want to play a different game? You're just equally as unlimited. Go connect with what does that game look like. Open your mind to hearing what is being taught in other realms. I have a channel on Telegram and I only post channeled information, or sometimes I post some of these transmissions because they're coming through me. If you want to join, let me know. It's all the beautiful, the positive information about from beings that are beyond here, because we have to open up our mind and go beyond the things of this world, of getting a degree, getting a job, and getting married and having a house and paying bills and dying, and boom, that's it. Then they tax your estate. Crazy that they would tax your estate. Why would anybody want to tax what you've already worked for and pay taxes on? That's insanity. We're moving to a realm where none of that craziness happens. And watch the political scene, because as within, so without. Lots of us activating our light. The light is shining on the darkness outside. It's law. As within, so without. It is law, because we're all one. All right, sentence 6. This world awaits the freedom you will give when you have recognized that you are free. That is why it's so important for you to acknowledge your freedom, because when you are free from the world, you're going to stop playing the games of the world. You're going to stop being afraid of the IRS, or being afraid of the diagnosis, or being afraid of things outside of you, being afraid of what's happening, being afraid for the LGBTQ plus LMNOP group. Yeah, that group has gone insane. That group has gone to the extremes where now they're so special. Why? Because that group was so oppressed for a long time. They began to find their voice, but they didn't stay in the middle. The pendulum swung to the other way, and now they're special and they need to be heard. Well, if all of us are not considered equal and we should be heard and all treated equally, the pendulum is going to swing from one side to the other. Now this group, it has its own infighting inside. Though there are those within that group, gay, saying, no, we're not going to do this. We're not going to do things that are exposing children to sexuality. We're not participating in that. Yes, we're gay. Yes, we're trans. Yes, we're this, but we're not going to do that to the children. When we begin to do things to children that are not acceptable, that you know internally are not okay, like giving my grandson a toy that was older than he was capable of having, or let him come in to his parents' room when they're having sex and watching that at 2 years old. When you know that things that are appropriate because you have a consciousness that is able to reason, that understands morality, love is very different. The essence of love is very different than the essence of fear. The essence of innocence is very different than the essence of corruption. So when you feel the difference, you know what is appropriate behavior, what is not. You don't have to judge it. You just know it. Discernment helps you see that. Humanity is about to see that we have crossed over into the line of abuse to children by many who have woken up and have healed their own inner child. They now can observe, because of the pain that they acknowledge within, the pain of those children without. And that's going to come to a very quick halt, this abuse, this rampant degradation that is happening in this world, because it just shows how low are we going. When you are down here and you think the abuse of children is okay, that's as low as it's going to go. Then there's going to be a massive correction, which is what's happening. Too many up here are not going to put up with what's happening at the lowest levels of insanity. So the world awaits your freedom, but it will not be free until you free yourself first. But you will not forgive the world until you have forgiven him who gave your will to you. This is a tricky one. We've got to forgive God. We all have to come to the place that we say, God, wow, I forgive you for giving me all this power that I misused. I forgive you for all the anger, the hate why did you make this happen? I forgive you for having created me in your image, powerful. Because as I forgive you, I am finally acknowledging that I've had all this power and I've been misusing it. Until we make an inventory of the things that we've been angry at God for, we're not going to be able to say, oh, you just gave me power. I just didn't know how to use it. You just gave me eternal life. I didn't realize that. You gave me love to share. I didn't give it away. Through the facing what we've been blaming God for, we begin to see that it's always because we have been arguing for our limitations. For it is by your will the world is given freedom, nor can you be free apart from him whose holy will you share. So you want to free the world? Free yourself. You want to free yourself? Acknowledge that you were created in the image of a very powerful being who wants to, through you, bring more love and light to the world. Our stories about God, punishing God, fire, brimstone, all that crazy shit that we were taught, you've got to clean that up from your consciousness. You got to purify your mind from all the lies that you've been taught. When your mind is pure, your heart will be pure. Now your walk and your talk will be congruent. Sure, you'll say shit and bullshit like I do, and maybe even fuck. That's okay. It comes out because in this world, we get to use whatever words we want to use. But when your heart is pure, you will not hurt anybody. You will not even judge anybody. You'll observe and you'll discern. Yeah, that's behavior that is not what I want to do anymore. I'm going to turn around and not watch it, but I'm not going to judge it, because to judge it, I got to go down right there with them. It's the same frequency. Once your mind reaches a level of vibrational frequency that is loving, you can see what is not loving as a call for love, not as a call for judgment. Oh, I'm better than that. I've been there, done that. I can tell you, I know what that's all about. That's why I'm really good at what I do, helping people understand their ego. Not the least sexy job on the planet when it comes to spiritual positions. It's like, what the fuck did I do to deserve be the one that teaches people about the ego when people don't want to hear about the ego? Oh, but it's so much fun because there's no way to free yourself if you do not understand the ego. And I can assure you, most spiritual people do not understand their ego. Because when all we want is chasing love and light, and we cannot turn our light on and shine it on the darkness, we don't understand how powerful we are. Because it is our light that helps free the planet. Because when we see that and we don't participate in the insanity in the world, when you use your ability to vote, your ability to where you choose to spend your money, I become so hyper aware of so much of what's happening with these corporations, which is great. Now, I don't have to buy a whole lot because, I don't need a whole lot, but I choose what farmers I prefer to give my money directly versus what corporation that owns the grocery stores. Blah, 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 blah. So my life has become so simplified, and I'm very diligent with where I send my energy, and money is energy. Let me quickly do paragraph 5. This is the last paragraph in this section. So God turns to you to ask the world be saved. For by your own salvation, it is healed. So we do have a very important role to play. God needs us. God needs us to be light, to be love, to extend it, because God loves all of its beings and recognizes that those who are here are suffering. And God wants to do everything within its power by using us if we are willing, because it's not going to send light in there that doesn't want to go there, to face the darkness and say, this is not okay. That's why this world is not going to change without many beings, whether they know that they're spiritual or not, doesn't matter. As a matter of fact, many of the ones that I'm observing, that I've been following, don't talk even a whole lot of spirituality. Yes, they speak of God regularly, but it wouldn't be the spirituality that I am familiar with, talking about we're non-physical, we're one, we're eternal. There's still, in some cases, some traditional religion there. However, they know that they must take a stand for truth. They are the courageous whistleblowers. They are the courageous ones who speak up against corruption. They are the courageous ones who are willing to put their careers on the line for doing the right thing. Most spiritual people that I've met, or in my circle, haven't been asked. I haven't been asked to put my life on the line. I haven't been asked to go in front of national television and speak my truth and be judged and bashed and have all the BLM people come in and burn things on my yard. Not that that's what they do, but I do know of some of them who have been Antifa, whatever, coming and scaring people into retreating. Some spiritual leaders have been retreating from the truth, from courage, because they're afraid. So there are beings that God has appointed. It's their script to stand against tyranny. Jesus did that. And look what happened to him. Martin Luther King Jr. did that. Look what happened to him. Kennedy did that. Look what happened to him. Gandhi did that. Look what happened to him. Joan of Arc did that. Look what happened to her. So lots of people who are very courageous are speaking up, and that's their role. If you just send, because you're aware of what's happening, love and light to them, if you see them embraced, there are so many that I follow, and I just, on a regular basis, I just bring them into my heart. Why? Because God has turned to me and asked me to save the world. By my own salvation is the world healed. I have healed my divide inside. So I send love and light, so that love and light strengthens those beings, because when they receive that burst of courage, where do you think it came from? It's a ripple of energy that has been sent, because there are so many of us who are either doing something or acknowledging something needs being done, and we are sending love, and we're seeing it done, and we are sharing information, and we are helping to wake up as many as possible. Something is happening, and we are part of that. It's those with their heads in the sand who think, oh, that's too dark, I can't look at it. that are not acknowledging the truth of who they are, that are not acknowledging that they're fighting against themselves by denying that that's happening. Because until you can face it, you haven't fully healed, because only a healed heart can look upon the atrocities that are happening and not judge them, but see it as a call for love. Paragraph or sentence 2 says, and no one walks upon the earth, but must depend on your decision, that he learned death has no power over him because he shares your freedom as he shares your will. I know that there are lots of people who have been influenced by my experience, the way I handled my divorce, the way I handled my son's addiction, the way I handled the way life is moving me from where I was in Atlanta to Colorado, the transitions that I go through my life, my lack of fear of death, my lack of fear inspires others to go, oh, if Laina can do it, so can I. But you're the same. Greater works than me will you do, because I can talk to those who are here, but you talk to more. And that number is exponentially more. But I can't reach your circle, but I can reach you. And then you, when you embody the truth and the love and the light, and you are that, then your circle goes on to do greater works than you, because we're here to extend the kingdom. But it all begins within. And the kingdom cannot extend through judgment. The kingdom only extends through the recognition of where there is love or a lack for love. If you're already happy and you know it, and you clap your hands and you're sending love, don't worry, you don't have to do anything else. But if there's a part that you cannot observe, that you are upset with, that you are judging, that's the call for love. Look at that. That's where you're going to have the pain, the discomfort, the anger, the frustration. Your body's giving you a signal. All of those frustrations, aggravations, tight and tense, that is your body communicating to you. You're holding on to something that is not true. You're fighting against yourself. It is your will to heal him. And because you have decided with him, he is healed. We are so powerful because we are one. The minute that you know another is needing healing, is because you are the one who gets to heal them. Until all of us forgive all that is happening sincerely, all that is happening is not going to be done with. So we must heal ourselves, and without judgment, acknowledge those who are doing things that are atrocious. Atrocious, when you look at this chart, are calling for love. Both the victims and the villains are calling for love. When we can see them and say, hey, there's another way. You are a loving being. You don't need to continue to do this. Then the world is going to shift, because we are the change that we've been waiting for. And when we change and we observe that they have the power to change as well, then we have compassion, kindness, gentleness, and forgiveness. Last sentence. And now is God forgiven, for you choose to look upon your brother as a friend. When you can look at others and go, wow, I just used my power to love you. Where did that come from? Came from God. Now you know God is love. Now you know all the lies that you've been taught about God, they're gone. They're wiped from your consciousness, because you recognize that love is the only thing that is real. And nothing real can be threatened. What is love cannot be threatened, cannot be hurt, cannot be affected, cannot be scared. And what is unreal doesn't exist. All evil is not real. It's the result of minds that have been blocking light. The result of minds who think and lack, so they want to get from others. That's what corruption is. The mind is corrupted. So it's trying to get it from others, hurting brothers and sisters. But when brothers and sisters forgive them and they feel that grace, they begin to change. If not in this lifetime, in another. It's not up to us to determine when this happens. It's up to us to extend it so that we know that God is love, and so are we. Now we can call God friend. As we read in the statement, let me take you to paragraph 1. Sentence number sentence number 10, paragraph 1. and not one thought that God has ever had, but waited for your blessing to be born. God imagined you into existence and was waiting for you to be the blessing that you are, birthed in this world. God is no enemy to you. He asks no more than that he hear you call him friend. At the end of the day, God doesn't want to be our father in the way that humans see it. God wants to be our partner, our friend, our collaborator, our co-creator in creating heaven on earth. I hope you've enjoyed this. Freedom of will. Next week, we will come and we will start on Beyond All Idols, which is what we are witnessing in the world is falling. All the idols that we have made to block love. All the idols that we have made to keep the ego busy chasing and trying to accumulate and gather. I love you all so much. If you enjoyed this transmission, please share it with others. If these messages touch you, share it with others. And if you don't share it, it's okay. I share them. Thank you all so much. Love you all very much. And if you're new to this message, LainaOrlando.com is my website. On YouTube, Laina Orlando is where I keep all of these wonderful transmissions because they bless me because you're here to receive. That's how the circle completes. Comes through me to you, where two or more are gathered, there is love. Love was here today. Love you all. And if anybody wants to share any nugget that you might have gotten, unmute yourself. Otherwise, thank you, love, of course. Otherwise, we will complete this. All right, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.